You are about to meet the national best-selling author of over 29 books right after this. Welcome, everybody. I'm Scott Patton. I'm your host. This is the Black Friday week live stream series. We've partnered with InfoStack. Every Black Friday, they have this massive sale. They get together with a whole bunch of experts and put together bundles of products, and they call them super stacks. And we'll be talking about that in a few minutes because one of our guests today is the contributor to one of the super packs. And she is a national best-selling author, as I said, of more than 29 novels. So we're going to get into how that feels like. She's a former secondary English language arts teacher and creative writing teacher with Southern Methodist University's CAPE program and the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute with North Carolina State University. She has applied her love of teaching to the creation of WriterSpark Academy, an online school for writers seeking to hone their craft. So with that, let's welcome Melissa Bourbon to the show. Hey, Melissa, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you. And this fits in so well with our theme at free-ebooks.net because you can go there, sign up, you'll get 5 free ebooks every month. And what we want to do is bring authors and readers together. So we have 200,000 people visiting every week. We have over 40,000 authors, all sorts of different topics. And so if you're an author and you want to get exposed to that traffic, just join up. It's free for authors to share their books and then hopefully get a big community together so that you can tell them to go to Amazon or Barnes & Noble and buy.
Yeah, buy the rest of them.
So tell us a little bit about your novels.
Okay, well, I'm a mystery writer primarily, and my first book was published in 2008, and I have a variety of different series out there now. So I have a couple of traditional mystery series, a couple of cozy mystery series. I have a couple standalone, more romantic suspense mystery thriller novels that are based on Mexican legends. I love those books. And then I'm currently working on 2 more traditional series, one with some paranormal elements. Oops, I lost you. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I muted myself.
Okay.
Or I got muted somehow. So what brought you to, why did you decide mystery? I'm a science fiction reader, so I think everyone should write science fiction. But was there something that happened that caused you to decide you wanted to be a mystery writer?
Yeah, so that's my son sneaking in here.
Right. They should have waited and said hi.
Yeah,
and photobombed you.
Yeah, right. Usually it's my husband that does that. So I was a middle school teacher and I had my first 2 kids and most of my salary went to daycare. And that's when I decided to stay home. Well, we made the decision that I would stay home with our kids. And, that was sort of before the YA revolution. So there wasn't a lot for middle grade. There was not a lot for young adults. And so I thought just to kind of keep my brain active and not turn into, baby mush, that I would write. I've been an avid reader for, since forever. My dad was the one that said, you must read 30 minutes before bed every night. And that turned me into a big reader. So that's how I started. And I wrote a wonderful middle grade book that has never seen the light of day. Then I kept having kids and fast forward about 10 years and we had moved and I started getting together with another friend who also liked to write once a week in the evenings. And before long, I had a character and then she had a family and then they had a location, a setting. And I thought, oh, I could put this into a book. That would be fun. And when I thought about what kind of book I would put it into, mystery came to mind as the obvious choice because I grew up with Nancy Drew and the Bobbsey twins and the Hardy Boys and then Agatha Christie, so that's just my wheelhouse in terms of reading. I love domestic suspense right now. That's just what I read. And so it makes sense that that's what I write.
Very cool. You reminded me actually of a time in my life when I was learning copywriting, and I was working, and the course that I took would send me like a chapter every month.
Mm-hmm.
And this was just piling up on my desk. And I looked at it and I thought, I really want to, go through this and read this, but obviously I'm not. So what can I do differently? And I thought, I'm just going to take the pile, I'm going to put it by the lamp by my bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll aim for 15 minutes a night, right? And I don't know if it was 15 or 30 or whatever it ended up being. And I mean, looking at it, I thought it'll take me 6 months to get through this. And in about a month and a half, I was caught up. And I was just shocked, So I always think it's important to try to set yourself up for success, right? Like,
Right.
put it where you're going to see it and use it, right? It's like if you think you should eat more fruit, but the fruit's in the garage in a box.
Right. Slice it up and leave it on the counter. Yeah,
That's right. Where you're going to eat it.
Right.
So with authors that are starting out, what is your recommendation? Like how, if I wanted to start writing some novels, how would you recommend someone start?
Well, obviously, you should go to WriterSparkAcademy.com and check that out. We've got tons of articles, tips about writing, and then I have online self-paced courses, one called Ready, Set, Write, that is all the nuts and bolts that you need to really understand the components of a novel, and then the field guide to writing a cozy mystery, which takes you through the process of writing a cozy mystery. But aside from WriterSpark Academy, I think that it's really important to develop a network of people who are like-minded. So to find, whether it's a national writing organization, a local writing group, Meetup is great for finding other writers in your area. It's really beneficial, I think, to be surrounded by people who understand your passion first and foremost. And that's a great way to form critique groups and to gain knowledge. When I started out, I joined Romance Writers of America. That's sort of all that was available to me where I lived. And even though I didn't write romance, but I learned so much about the industry and the craft. And authors, I have found, have been very generous. They are very generous with their time and knowledge. And so I, learned from some wonderful people who are, amazing authors. And part of why I created WriterSpark Academy is to help people skip the line, to pay it forward, to allow people to kind of skip that steep learning curve that a lot of us had to go through before the internet was at our fingertips. So I would say, find like-minded people and then find a way to learn, whether that is through experienced people or through a course or through the many, many, many websites and blogs that are out there that share about the craft of writing. There are some great ones. And, TikTok has editors and authors that share tips, including me, and Instagram. I mean, all of these social media platforms have opportunities to really learn. And one of my biggest tips is, or I guess takeaways with writing, is that you're never not learning. You are a reader, and the more you read, the stronger you become as a writer. And everything that you write gets a little bit better if you have intention and you're trying to improve yourself with the writing craft.
I think that's a really, really good point. Lord of the Rings. I read it before I was a teenager. I didn't think I understood it, but I read it. And then again and again and again.
Right.
And it was amazing to me because Tolkien actually had a group of other professors and other writers that he met with regularly. And then they would share the stories that they were writing and give each other ideas. Oh, do this and oh, do that. And
did Fitzgerald. So did Hemingway. So did Gertrude Stein. I mean, all of these people, they found their people. And,
right.
That's really important because, my husband's super supportive and my family and friends, but nobody gets the passion of why you want to sit at a computer or with your notebook and write and write and write all day long and live in this imaginative world in your head, except another writer.
Exactly.
It's important.
So how do you structure a mystery? Like, do you know who done it, who did it
Who did?
at the beginning and work back, or do you just start at the beginning of the story and
No,
then hope you don't get?
typically you do know who did it and how that happened. And as a teacher, it's what's called backwards mapping. So you look at what the end goal is, and then you work backwards to see how are we going to bring our students to that goal, right? And it's the same with the mystery. So we know what happened, we know what the crime was, we know why, we know who did it, we know everything that we possibly can, ideally. And then you have to work backwards with clues and red herrings to see, okay, how can I get my sleuth or my detective or, whatever it is, to get to the truth. So I'm kind of a hybrid of a pantser and a plotter. And I run a podcast as well, and I talk with authors, and we have several authors that we've had this conversation about, are you a pantser and are you a plotter? And, it used to be I thought, oh, I'm a plotter or I'm a pantser. But the truth is we're all a hybrid, because we plot to varying degrees and we pants to varying degrees, because all of us, as we write, have these great aha moments. And this is when we develop description and when we develop our characters and the layers to everything. And, in a sense, that's pantsing. Your brain writing is what I call it. And but you start with kind of an overview of your plot, which again can be to varying degrees. But in terms of a mystery, yes, I always like to start with knowing who is dead and why. That's not to say I haven't changed, because a couple of times I have changed the villain at the end, and that caused a lot of problems because I had to go back and change a whole lot of things. But in the end, it was a better story for it.
Cool. Do you ever find the characters take on a life of their own and sort of write themselves?
Yeah, in a lot of ways. And then characters often will just show up that you hadn't planned. In my most recent Pippin Lane Hawthorne book, which is a traditional mystery with some paranormal elements, with many characters named after Tolkien characters, in fact, Pippin included. There was this character that showed up, just kind of accosted Pippin on the sidewalk one night. And I don't know where she came from. I didn't know what her plan was. I didn't know why she was there. And she ended up being incredibly instrumental to the plot and of that story, and then to the bigger plot of the series arc as well. So yeah, random things happen. And, I have a character that lives kind of catty corner from Pippin, and she's an 70-ish something free spirit. And she's got a spin-off series now because she's just so fun to write, and I certainly didn't plan that. So yeah, they really can come alive.
That's cool. So one of the things about writing is you don't want to be too rigid, right? Like you want to be able to flow with it.
I think so.
Yeah, without maybe going, it's a balancing act, right? Because you don't want to go on a tangent that ends up in a totally different place from where you want it to end up.
Right. And that's why you hire, if you're going indie, that's why you have a developmental editor that you work with. And if you're traditional, that's what your editor does, is to help rein that kind of stuff in or identify. We're very close to our own work, and so it's really hard to see the gaps or the problems.
Right. And that's why you want to be part of a group too, right? If you're talking to people, and then it's like, another thing that I like is comics. I've always read comics. Mm-hmm. And then you can tell sometimes when the author and the editor and the executives of the company have a fight.
Oh yeah. And who won?
The thing is going exactly where the writer wants, and all of a sudden it just veers off in this direction. It's like, what happened?
Yeah. Then that happens once in a while, and you have to either give in, or if it's really important to you, you stand your ground and make your case. And you're depending on who your editor is and what kind of relationship you have, you may win that argument or you may not.
Yeah. Well, and in today's world with the internet, it's easy to find interviews with different people. And you just reminded me of two comic book writers that I read interviews of. And one was like, why did you leave this series? It was really successful and everything else. So I had a big fight with the editor, and the executive sided with the editor. So I left because it wasn't my vision anymore. Right. And then there was another one where basically the author said, or the writer, well, the comic book author said, this is where I want it to go. And it's so important that this happens. And fought the editor and fought the executives. And then they said, okay, if it doesn't work, it's your fault.
Yeah,
And it was spectacular. It worked out really well. So it's funny how that goes.
Yeah, it is.
Cool. So we're going to take just a short break, because one of the things that people tuning in can do is they can, in the comments, go #Mexico, and we're going to give a complimentary vacation in Cancun or Puerto Vallarta at the end of the show. So you want to stay tuned to that. And I happen to have this little video. All right, Melissa, you can't tell your kids to get on here and #Mexico for the next 20 minutes.
That's so funny. One of my kids came in Sunday. 3 of them live in LA and I'm in North Carolina. He came from Mexico. He was in Mexico City and Oaxaca. And my 2 oldest are in Mexico right now. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is really, really cool. So let's talk a little bit about the writer's craft and WriterSpark that we've got in the Superstack. And
Okay.
we're going to start with this.
Wow, that was cool.
Thank you. So we have, I wanted to bring up the page, and this is only available for Black Friday week. I think the Tuesday after Black Friday is the last day, and InfoStack approached a bunch of other amazing experts and put this huge bundle together, and then it's got this great discount. It's only $49. Pretty amazing deal.
It is. It's really amazing.
And you've got all this, the bottom line up front, everything else. I want to scroll down to, and we're going to put the link in the comments so you can see it. And it's good for 12 months. So, it's a lot of information. I find personally that sometimes I get a bit turned off because these people pile on all this information. I was like, how am I ever going to consume it, right? But
Right.
You're going to have a whole year to go through this. And I think if you're serious about writing, it is crucial, to get in here and start learning.
And some of the things I believe have lifetime access. My courses have lifetime access, for example.
Right. Yeah.
So, and I know I'm not the only one. So some things, you have access to the whole thing for a year, but some things are downloadable. Some things are, information or software that you will lose after a year, but other things you have forever.
Right. And and if it's software and it's only good for a year, you can buy it.
Right.
I should have looked to see where you are, and now of course I'm looking. Oh wow, this looks really cool. Oh wow, this looks really cool.
There's so many interesting and great things. Yeah.
Essential fantasy writing course.
Okay.
Here we are, the WriterSpark mini course writing bundle. So tell us a little bit about what we can expect when we get it.
Okay, well, the mini bundle consists of a course about the hero's journey, which is something I'm passionate about. And I use in my story structure to make sure that my heroes, my protagonists have growth, which I think is the core of success for any book. If you have a character-driven book, then there has to be growth. And with series, people come back to series because they relate to the character resonates with them. They love those characters. And so, you have to have these journeys that your characters go on, whether it's in a series or a standalone book. And so the first course is a mini course about the hero's journey with a big example using movies. And I used October Sky, which is a great, great movie and a great hero's journey. And then the second mini course is about writing dialogue. There is nothing worse than reading a book that has stilted or inauthentic dialogue. And so that course, it gives you strategies and sort of guide you through the process of how different ways to use dialogue and to help you make it authentic. And then the third element of the bundle is a digital version of the Ready, Set, Write companion book, which has all of the handouts that go with that course. And so it's really all about the planning of your novel.
Very, very cool. And I keep muting myself because there are noises, and also I don't want to have anything distracting from what you are doing. And then of course I forget to unmute myself. So that's really amazing. So one question that I had, you mentioned the hero's journey. Can you tell us a little bit about like what is the hero's journey?
Yeah, so the hero's journey started with Joseph Campbell decades and decades ago, and he studied mythology and the monomyth, and he identified a pattern that stories follow, that heroes follow within mythology, and it's a pattern that we as humans relate to. And so that's kind of where it started. And then Christopher Vogler, I can't remember the year, but he took that information. So Joseph Campbell wrote the book Hero with a Thousand Faces. And then Christopher Vogler took all of that information and kind of turned it into his own thing. And it's called The Writer's Journey. And that's his book. And from there, he crafted a pattern, I guess a pattern of elements that every story should have, and it has become the blueprint for Hollywood ever since. In fact, Will Smith's memoir that I listened to maybe about 5 months ago, he references it. Steven Spielberg gave him a copy of the Joseph Campbell book, and he said he read it and learned about the hero's journey, and it was life-changing for him in his movie roles. I mean, it's really powerful when you understand the elements of a story, and most of us probably write that way anyway, or we incorporate so much of it, but to really understand what they are and why they work, and then to use them intentionally, just can really level up your writing.
It makes a big difference when you do it intentionally rather than accidentally.
Right.
And
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, we have one more video here that I made for you. Nice. And we just want to remind everybody, head over. Now it's not showing. There it is. So the Writer's Craft 4.0, it's available for 1 week because this is Tuesday. Next Tuesday will be the last day. It's in the comments, so you don't have to like look at the screen here. You just go to the comments and tap on it, because it's one of my pet peeves. Well, why do you put it on the screen? Because like, it just doesn't work when you...
Right, or take a screenshot.
So we always put it into the comments. There's the free ebooks comment. And Melissa, thank you so much. I really appreciate having you on. You've given us some great information. It's really fascinating. I'm looking forward to taking your courses.
Thank you.
I mentioned before we came on the air that I'm going to ask you to do something, and that is leave us with today's tip.
Okay, before we get to that, I do want to say for Black Friday, the 2 main courses are 50% off. If you go to WriterSpark Academy, you'll get all that information. I have a lot of writing tips. I'm on TikTok at bookishly_cozy, where that's all I do pretty much is give writing tips. But if I had to give one today, I would say don't give up. I was a daughter, a mom, a teacher, a wife, all of these things. And I had this hankering to write a book, and I got a lot of rejections. And that was during the time when we had to put the query letters in the mail with the self-addressed stamped envelope, and you're checking the mailbox, and then you suddenly get back the rejection. And I had a stack of them, just like everybody else, every other author. And the difference between the people that succeed and end up having a career and those that don't is that those that succeed or have that writing career did not give up. They were able to separate the personal from the business. And that's really important. It took me a while to get to that point, because your writing is so, so personal. And when you get rejected by editors or by agents, you feel like it's a slap, against you personally and everything that you've written, when that's not the case at all. There are all kinds of reasons that writers get their work rejected. And so you really have to develop that thick skin and understand that it's a business, and push through and persevere, because you can succeed. And now with indie publishing, there are just so many opportunities to find the success that you want as an aspiring writer, as a new writer, wherever you are on your journey. So don't give up.
That's beautiful advice. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. This is free-ebooks.net, and you can join there for free and get 5 free ebooks every month. And if you're an author and you've got some of those rejected books, we will accept them. Well, we don't really do any editing. Like, we read through them to make sure that there's nothing in there that's like inappropriate, and generally check to make sure that it's the sentence structure is like a real sentence. But we don't judge we don't say, we're not accepting that book because that character, I don't like them.
Right.
As long as it's like coherent and a real story and everything else, it's up to the readers to judge. And our mission really is to connect readers and new authors, or maybe, I don't want to say unpopular authors, but I mean, there are the authors you see every time you go into Chapters or Barnes and Noble. And we think there's thousands of people out there that have a story that they want to share. And at free-ebooks.net, you may get 10 readers, you may get 100 readers, you may get 1,000 readers. We don't know. We have 200,000 people coming every week to the site, but we've got tons of different categories. So you're not going to get exposed to all of the traffic that comes, but you get some of it. And if we can help join the readers and the authors and help them have a better life, that's what we're really all about. So make sure you go over to free-ebooks.net and tell them Scott sent you. And we'll see you next time, everybody. Bye for now.